Hello everyone, I'm your instructor Fred Agley for IST 210, and this is going to be an interesting week where we get into some data modeling and spin here around. Alright, let's take a look. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed that little quick hoverboard intro. That was something different, huh? In any case, this week we begin some really cool database work, and you're going to find yourself doing two different things that you can possibly be finding yourself doing as someone that works with databases. So I could tell you this one story where the first time I was joined onto a project team, I had to quickly learn what was the database structure. Now, this is something new to many of you, and a database structure becomes really important. It's almost like the blueprint. So in database lingo, it's also known as the ERD, also the entity relationship diagram. So now in chapter 3, you're going to find yourself going into the VLabs, into our database instance, and then kind of exploring what are the database tables. Now, from this exploration in the lab, you'll see that we're going to actually write some simple select statements, but more importantly, you're going to go in there and you're going to reverse engineer what's known as the data dictionary. Now, a data dictionary really is a helpful tool, especially for those of you who will become developers. So a lot of times when you're writing code, whether it's for a web application, a smartphone app, a desktop application, or whatever, you're going to have to figure out what are the objects that contain the code and then how they're related to each other. Sometimes that information can be found in what's known as the data dictionary. Most enterprise systems provide you with data dictionaries. Some don't. But for the most part, this lab exercise is going to have you reverse engineer a data dictionary that pertains to a fictitious school. It's the Upper Coastal University or college, I believe, and that's where you're going to be working with that. So let's take a look here at what is this particular database going to look like. Okay, now in a few moments here, we're going to cut over to the screen and we're going to look at the lab and pick it apart so you can understand everything that you're going to need to be building this. You're going to be submitting two areas, I guess you could say, and we're going to go over that in detail. Also, I'm going to provide a lecture, which I don't like to call them lecture. I like to call them talks. That's going to cover some of the basic concepts revolving through or weaving through chapter 3. And it's all foundational stuff. This particular quick talk that I'm going to give is going to be on the primary key and foreign key constraints, and I'm hoping that you'll find it helpful. Now, that won't be in this particular overview intro. It'll be a separate standalone video. Okay, so let's take a look here at the desktop, right over there. Okay, here we are, and we're going to go through what's going to be required to put together this week's lab, which is known as lab number 1. Even though you did some work in the database last week, that was more like a getting familiar type exercise. So in this particular lab, when you take a look here in Canvas, you're going to see that it's pretty detailed as far as how and what you need to do, but I'm going to show you a series of examples and walk you through it. Now, as far as details go, I'm not going to go into great depth as far as how to use Microsoft Visio. I'm saving that for another video, and I'll provide that link in Canvas so you can watch that if you feel like you need it. So when you look at this particular exercise is to get you familiar with the concept of reverse engineering a data dictionary. Excuse me. Data dictionaries are really helpful tools for developers and integrators and other people that are working with databases when it comes time to retrieving some kind of data or information. So here we're going to be looking at the Upper Coastal University registration system. It's a database that we have inside of your MySQL instance out in VLabs, and you're going to be taking a look at that and then using that information or that metadata to craft your data dictionary, and you're also going to be crafting your first entity relationship diagram. Now, ERDs are great blueprints that help you understand how a database is structured so that when you do go and build your applications or you do go build some SQL queries, seeing how the objects are related is really, really important and really, really helpful. Okay, so first things first, we're going to go out and we're going to connect to the database through VLabs. and you're going to expand your database folder, and you'll see all the databases out there that are stood up for all the students and so on. You're going to scroll down. Now, you're not going to go into your database instance for this exercise. That'll come a little bit later on in the semester. You're going to actually scroll down and look for IST 210 WC. Once you're in there, expand that out, and you're going to notice that there's a folder with called tables, and if you drag these windows, you can see it a little better. Oops, sorry. One of the things I want to call your attention is that you actually have inside of this database instance, IST210WC, you can actually place other databases. Now, a database is definitely an installation instance, but you can structure an application to be related just by putting in the specific tables. Now, in this setup here, we have demo underscore and then the object name, and we have UC underscore and then the object name. We're going to be focusing on these particular objects here because these are the ones that are required for the upper coastal university database system. So that's the UC part. If you were to expand on any one of these, of course, then you get more detailed information. But if you go back into the lab, you could see that after you use the Object Explorer to expand everything, there's another feature here. This is a pretty sophisticated feature. It's known as SP underscore help. That is a stored procedure, which is why it says SP. And a stored procedure is nothing more than a small program that is actually executed and stored inside the database itself that performs a specific function. And in this particular case, SP underscore help will help you retrieve metadata. So let's see how it works. You're going to come in, you're going to create a new query. And say, for example, I want to pull up the metadata that describes how UC underscore course is going to store its data. So it's data about data. And all you have to do is type SP underscore help and then the name of the object, which is UC underscore course. Now, as always, make sure whenever you're running your queries that you're in the correct database instance. So once I have that there, I can click execute. And I'll see the output down below. Now, this particular output is a lot different than what you did in the familiarization exercise. It's not a typical query that you might think of a list of data. What you're getting is all the information or all the metadata that pertains to this particular object. And you can see that if you read it pretty closely, I know at first it looks a little bit confusing, but you can get create date information here. You could also see the columns that are actually in the table, even though they are also listed here, along with some of the attributes. You get all that in here too. Another area that becomes more important to us, though, is this area down here. Now, this is giving you some information. This table is referenced by foreign key, UC underscore section. And if you expand it a little bit more, you can get the name of the foreign key. So that's good information to have, right? So what are you going to do with this? Well, what I'm going to show you here is how you're going to build your data dictionary. You're going to go in and you're going to look up the metadata for all the tables that are part of the UC, the university or the upper coastal university database system. What I have here is, if you take a look at this, you can recreate this in Microsoft Excel, so you can take a look at it now in the video and then grab it a little later on. You may need to add some more rows here because some of the tables have a few more columns than others. But all you'll come in and do is, for example, UC underscore course, you would come into the column. The first course is, or the first column is course underscore ID. Tab over. The data type for it is, if I just move my window a little bit, I could see it, is course ID here is numeric, which means it can only store numbers. The length is 5 positions. So how wide the data is, or the size of the data, is always stored in the length. So if you look here at varchar, the call or the course name, we could jump ahead a little bit. Course name, and we put varchar, which stands for variable characters. You can actually see it could store up to 25. So something that has 25 characters and it could be stored in that particular field. If it has 26 characters, well, that 26th letter gets truncated or gets cut off. And if you keep on looking, you can see that it's nullable and everything like that. Now you might be saying, well, why do you need something like this spreadsheet? And when it's all right there, well, that's a good question. I'm glad I asked it. So one of the things that you might realize is this would be a great reference to have right on hand. So as you populate this entire data dictionary, Now, when it comes time to writing some complex SQL, all you have to do is glance at your spreadsheet. And it's a great way to get familiar with the actual database. So you're going to build all that in there. Now, the one that may cause the most confusion early on here is the one that pertains to references. And I want to show you one particular table here. I believe it's UC underscore, let's see, faculty. I'm going to check this particular metadata out. Now, when you actually look down here in the references area, you could see that loc ID references UC underscore location. So for the reference field in the spreadsheet here, you would put the name of the table. So when we talk about relationships, we're basically creating connections between tables, and we'll explain all that a little bit more later on. So there's your data dictionary piece, and there's the use of sp underscore help. And now the last thing that you're, or not the last thing, the next thing you're going to have to do is either use Visio, that's available to you inside of the VLabs, or you could download your own copy of Visio, which would probably be a great idea for you to do. It's a great piece of software. Once you open it up, you're going to want to look for the crow's foot notation template. This is the standard notation that we're going to be using throughout the course. And as you can see now in here, it's going to give you your workspace, and it gives you access to these objects. Working with this particular tool, I'm going to provide a much more in-depth video on how to use Visio. All you have to do though is drag your entities out, and you're going to put one entity for each of the table inside of your data dictionary. You're going to put the column names and indicate the relationships with the relationship connector, which is a crow's foot. So there's your Visio file. So you'll turn that in. You'll also turn in your Excel spreadsheet with your data dictionary. And last but not least is you're going to do a series of SQL selects. So if you scroll down in your lab assignment, you're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 select statements, and you're going to provide the SQL and the results for this particular. So you're going to say, for example, we wanted to just look up information on, we'll say select star from UC underscore faculty. I run my query. Now I get it in the grid. This is very difficult to copy and paste, so I want it to come back in text. I toggle over here by clicking on the results to text. I can rerun my query, and now I can have it in a nice copy and paste format that I can put right into the Canvas text area text box. So those are the three components that you're going to provide for this week's lab. Sorry about that, folks. I had to quickly plug in my camera here so I can record. So where are we now moving forward with the project? The MOU and the contracts are in, all the teams are formed up, and now becomes the work of the teams of taking a look at what is this project about. I've provided a number of videos in Angel, and I would expect every student in our class to watch those videos so you have a good sense of what we're trying to build. This is a fictitious project, but I will tell you that there's a lot of elements in this project that come from some real world experiences that I have had and developer friends of mine have had. Now, what is really important with this project? Collaboration. I would definitely make sure that you schedule time every week to meet with your team, whether it's 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or an hour. And they don't always have to be work sessions. They should just be catch-up sessions where you're checking. I'll expect some guidance also on that as a page in Canvas so you can review and see how you can better manage your team. Other than that, we got a football classic coming up here this weekend, a Super Bowl, right? And I'm sure many of you will be watching it this weekend, and that's Sunday night. This assignment is also due Sunday night. So make sure that you take a look at this lab early enough in the week so you can get started and get it knocked out of the way so you can go enjoy some great football commercials. The game, I'm sure, will be good too. All right. So bottom line is check out videos, check everything out, and we will be in touch with you soon. See ya!